Okay, let's dive right in. When you hear about AI and the economy, it feels like you're hearing two totally different stories, right? One story is this amazing future, a massive boom and prosperity. And the other? Well, it's a devastating economic crisis. So what's the real story?
To really wrap our heads around this, let's imagine we're in the year 2028. Just look at these two possibilities. They couldn't be more night and day. On one hand, you have the S&P 500 soaring past 12,000 with almost no unemployment. On the other, a market crash and unemployment hitting double digits. The whole thing really boils down to one question. Is AI going to bring us abundance, or are we looking at mass displacement? So here's our game plan. We're going to quickly walk through both the boom and crisis scenarios. Then we'll need to clarify a really important concept about how these systems work. That's going to set us up for the main event, a deep dive into the 8 powerful braking forces that could stop a total collapse. And finally, we'll pull it all together to see what the real risk is.
All right, first up, let's talk about the good news. This is the optimistic case, the idea that abundant AI is, well, exactly what it sounds like, a source of incredible abundance for pretty much everyone.
So picture this world. Businesses see their huge software bills get cut in half. And what do they do with all that extra cash? They expand, they hire more people. At home, you've got your own personal AI agent that negotiates a better insurance rate for you, cancels subscriptions you don't use. It's like getting a raise without even asking. The key here is that AI-driven deflation doesn't wreck the economy. It just transfers trillions from middlemen and bloated budgets right back into the pockets of consumers and entrepreneurs. It fuels a huge boom.
But of course, there's always a but, isn't there? Let's flip the coin and look at the much darker view. This is the scenario where that same incredible AI efficiency becomes the very thing that drives our economy off a cliff.
This scenario is all about a vicious cycle, a real doom loop. It works like this. AI gets better, so a company makes a perfectly rational decision to lay off some workers and save money. But then, they take those savings and reinvest them in more AI. That makes the AI even better, which leads to, you guessed it, more layoffs. Each individual decision makes perfect sense, but when everyone does it, you get this self-feeding monster that leads to collapsing demand and a financial death spiral.
So how in the world do we figure out which of these futures is more likely? Well, to do that, we have to geek out for just a second, because there's a really common way people talk about this that's actually technically wrong.
This is so important. We might call that crisis a negative spiral, because the outcome is bad. But in systems thinking, it's actually a positive feedback loop. The best way to think about it is that ear-splitting squeal you get when a microphone gets too close to a speaker. It just gets louder and louder, amplifying itself. A negative feedback loop is the opposite. It's like your thermostat. It gets too hot, so it cools down. It corrects itself. And here is the absolute kicker. A positive feedback loop, like our AI displacement spiral, does not stop on its own. Something external has to hit the brakes.
And that's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? What are those brakes? If this AI crisis is a runaway train, what could possibly slow it down? This is where a fascinating red team analysis comes in. They basically tried to poke holes in the crisis scenario, and they identified 8 powerful checks and balances baked into our system. Let's walk through them. Okay, the first 2 brakes are grounded in just plain old reality. First, you have physical constraints. You can't just wish data centers into existence. They need a staggering amount of power and advanced chips, and you can only build those things so fast. Second, you've got basic economics. The labor market adjusts. If wages for some jobs fall enough, it can actually become cheaper to hire a human than to pay for a super advanced AI.
Next up are the brakes that we as a society have built. Think about things like professional licensing. An AI might be able to pass the bar exam, but it can't legally represent you in court. Those institutional hurdles are powerful, and they move very slowly. And then, of course, there's the government. Never underestimate its ability to act in a crisis. When things get really bad, they can and will step in with stimulus and support to stabilize things.
Now, these next 2 forces are really interesting. First, what if AI makes everything so cheap that it actually offsets falling wages? I mean, imagine your salary goes down 10%, but your rent, food, and energy costs all go down by 20%. You're actually better off, right? Your purchasing power goes up. The second break is just raw people power. If unemployment gets too high, you're going to see massive social backlash. Think Occupy Silicon Valley, but on a much bigger scale. That kind of pressure forces politicians to act.
And for our final pair of brakes, we've got the legal system and the free market. First, the threat of enormous class action lawsuits if an AI messes up is a huge deterrent for companies. It makes them way more cautious. Second, you have just brutal competition. Google, Meta, OpenAI, they're all in a price war. That fierce competition drives down the cost of AI, which means the benefits get passed on to us, the users, instead of being hoarded by one single company.
So, what's the bottom line here? When you stack up all 8 of these powerful braking forces, that scenario of a complete runaway economic collapse, well, it starts to look pretty unlikely. Our system has built-in safety features, physical, economic, and political, that will almost certainly slow things down.
So, if it's not a total collapse, what is it? The most likely outcome is something more like a painful, messy, and very long transition. The real danger isn't that the whole economic machine explodes. It's the immense social and political strain that happens when the incredible gains from AI go to a tiny group of people, while a much larger group is left facing real uncertainty and income loss.
And that really leaves us with the final and most important question. It's not a technical question, it's a human one. We've seen that the system has brakes to prevent a total freefall. They might be slow, they might be imperfect, but they are there. The real question is, do we have the political will to actually use them, to manage the social collision that's coming? That is the great challenge of our time.